Hello, people. We are live. Let me make sure all my volumes are turned down. And we're about to go live on the Instagrams as well. Y'all come on in. Come on in. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Drop a little something in the comments so we know you're here. Hello and welcome. Give everyone a chance to come on in. And let's go live on the Instagrams. All right. So we are live on Instagram. We are live on the Facebooks. We are live on the YouTubes. So we've got so many ways to watch. Go ahead and drop us a line. Hey, Megan, thank you. I love the yellow and polka dots. Thank you so much, ma'am. All right, y'all. I want to go ahead and get started because today I suspect that we are going to be having some thorough conversations. And so we want to make sure we give ourselves enough space and time to just really go in. So I want to welcome you all to Coaching Conversations. My name is Jamie Alilaw, and really coaching is just an opportunity to have a conversation about possibilities, right? And exploring the possibilities. So on Coaching Conversations, I love to bring people that I love and I respect and who have voices that need to be heard on and just have a conversation with them. So for me, today's intention is to just really to fill our cups. I know I brought my cup to get full. I'm ready. So to fill our cups, my intention is connection, and joy and levity. I'm like, you know what? Let me get me some levity today. Let me just get some lightness on today. So, I wore the yellow and the polka dots and, with the head wrap, because I was like, you know what? I want some brightness and some ease on today. So we are here. We are set up. My girl is here. So let me just go ahead and invite her in. Let me see. Ooh. Let me see. Alexandria, can you request to join me on Instagram? For some reason, it doesn't want me to invite. Won't let me do the invite. So here she is, y'all, on the Facebooks. We have the lovely. Let me bring her in on Instagram before we start doing the real introductions. All right, look, here we go.
Hey,
here she is. Okay, so let me make sure I got my volumes, all my volumes down. Okay, so we've got my wonderful friend Alexandria Barabin Harris, cultural leadership coach and published author. Published. I've got my copy. I've got my copy.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Oh, it's just, I'm still getting adjusted.
Well, we're just going to keep calling you published author, you know, so it can seep into the pores because you are legit. I mean, you were already an author before this came, but you know,
this is a different level.
This is a different level.
This is a different level.
This is a different level, and we're gonna talk about it. But first, you know, I have to introduce you to the people so that they can get a glimpse, they can get a glimmer, they can get just a peep, a small idea of who Miss Alexandria is. So I have known Alexandria since graduate. I think I was in graduate school, grad school.
Yeah.
At California State University, Northridge.
Matador's Olay.
Olay. And we met in the Pan-African Studies Department. And I have known Alexandria from the beginning to be light, to be power, to be brilliance. The insight and connection that she has access to, the level of perception is off the charts. Accessible in a regal way. You can sit with that and figure out what that means. You'll see. But Alexandria, you are 6 foot tall, correct?
6'2", yes.
6'2". Okay. Yes. Alexandria is 6'2", and is every bit of that and then some in terms of her presence, her importance, just everything. Okay. She's everything. Okay. So, I'm a better person for knowing Alexandria. And so I want to bring her in so that y'all can get some of that too. So y'all just come on in and get some of the juice. Okay. And she is now published author of Free Your Real Vision. In fact, y'all, I'm so excited about this because look at what we have. Free Your Real Vision, ticker tape. Okay. Just check it out. Okay. So, Alexandria, I'm so glad that you're here with us. And I'm just going to ask for you to introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, whatever you want us to know about you.
So I just have to first of all say thank you so much for inviting me to your platform and being generous with such a lovely introduction and sharing me with your audience. And I have, y'all, please continue to follow Miss Jamie. Listen, Miss Sang Jamie, okay? I know that you all know her as, you know, the wisdom, coaching, advice expert, but this child can sing like no other. And so it's just a sign of just how multi-talented and multi-passionate she really is. So I am Alexandria Barabin Harris, and I am a consultant, an educator, and a coach to some amazing women in my community with Yes, She Leads. And Yes, She Leads, you know, for me, I had done diversity and cultural work and education, Pan-African, diasporic community, arts, engagement, literature. I've been doing that for over 10 years. And I just felt like God was putting something on my heart to do something specific for women and girls. And the first iteration of that was really just doing like clothing drives and raising awareness around issues, social justice issues that impact women and girls. And I did like clothing drives. I did raise awareness around intimate and domestic violence. I talked about faith and how that is a unique journey for, women who are dealing with real life issues, and they want their faith to be a central part of their lives, but they also are trying to figure out how does this work outside of just, what everybody else says. Like, how do we have a keep it real approach to, dealing with life and relationships? At a very young age, I was engaged to be married, and that did not work out. And I was shattered. I was like, oh my God, my whole life is over. And I lost a sense of having a grip on my faith at that particular point in life. And what I learned was, oh, hallelujah, it was a blessing. It was a blessing. But it took a journey for me to have a reintroduction to what it means to have faith and believe and think about, the plans that God has for me long term. And then also it took me to discover and do some work on myself to recognize, oh, my love, this is not only not the right relationship for you, but there's some things that you will never, ever, 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 ever in your life accept again, based on better knowing who you are and understanding the real possibilities of your life. Mm-hmm. And if you shall be single for a longest of times, and that's not your desire in your heart, but you will be single for a long time before you ever put yourself in a situation where you are okay with somebody else putting you down and calling it love. So we're not doing that. We're just not. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that again. Praise God. Right. So I had to grow. So it was about spiritual growth. It was about personal growth. It was about personal development. It was about using a lot of these tools that I do in professional development trainings. People are familiar with Myers-Briggs and, some of these other things that I would do for nonprofit organizations or companies and their staff. I would bring in these tools for them to talk about how this applies to work. But let's take some time and do some digging and understand how this applies to your real life. The relationships that you have, whether they're romantic or friendships or, even just family relationships, like how does that work for you? What does it mean to let go of your limiting beliefs that allow so much, junk in your life? How do you address the secrets that you're holding and that you're operating from? And then what happens when you realize that these things that you've been told or taught are just not true? They're not true for you. The things you've been told about yourself. You mentioned being 6'2". I was told for many years, well, you're beautiful inside, but you're just not beautiful outside. You're not attractive. You're masculine. You're manly. No man is going to want you. No man is going to see you as a woman to love. And I believed the lie for a long time, right? And so what happens when you recognize, like, oh, that actually isn't necessarily true. Like, yes, there are people who will not see you as beautiful, but then there are other people who will. And most importantly is, are you holding space for the fact that you think you're beautiful, right? Inside and out, and that you're open to like a different kind of experience, right? And so lo and behold, praise him, I got a wonderful husband who does not care anything about my height. He's actually like, yeah, that's amazing. And put on some heels. Like, no worries if you're taller than me, because I love you for you. And it's actually not about, the insecurity of, do you fit the mold of what a woman is supposed to be in that kind of stereotypical way. But I had to make room to get there. And so what I really have set off on a journey to do is to support other women in being able to grow in that regard, to grow personally in that personal development way, to have access to their vision beyond just the stereotypical approach to, a vision board. For example, I throw vision board parties every single year. I love vision boards, but I come up across a very common theme. I want to travel. I want to make more money. I want to find love, and I want to have a nice house. Listen, all those things are on my list as well. But let's talk about, why do you want these things? What purpose does it serve? Every vision board should not look the same. right? Because we are unique women, we have our own journey. And so when I start seeing this repetition, I'm like, we're in a theme. We're being sent a message about what a good woman's life is supposed to be. And we're
Mm-hmm.
just saying, yeah, I want that. I want that. I want that. It's not really connected to our authentic desires or journey. It's certainly not reflective of our long-term vision, because my vision intrinsically should be different than yours, right? And so what I set out to do was say, how can we sort of complicate this idea of vision beyond just the pretty pictures on the board? How can we move past that? How can we dig deeper, right? So that what we're experiencing is actually a life that we love, not just an echo of what we've been told a woman, and certainly a woman of color, a Black woman,
Mm-hmm.
is supposed to have, right? And make that more authentic, and then look for those opportunities for real transformation that lead us to that place.
So thank you for joining us today on from the Core Coaching Coach Conversations. She just laid it all out there for you. Go be well. No, it's just, I mean,
I'm just vibing. Listen, it's the yellow polka dots. The yellow polka dots did it for me today. I was like,
listen, open up, child. Just let it flow, because that's what we're here for. And I appreciate it. And you spoke so much to what your focus and really I can hear much of your mission in the passion that you speak from, this mission and this desire towards women. And, and you even accentuated, this conversation around women of color and the expectations that we have and the desires that we have for ourselves and all of that. And so my question for you first is, what is your intention for this session today? Like what would you like to see happen or come from, or what are your intentions for today's session?
So let me just first say, and I already said how amazing, it is to just be invited to this space, because I don't take it for granted. Like, we could be cool. We've been friends for a long time, but I don't take for granted that this is a choice that you're making to say, oh yes, I'd like to bring in someone who I know, who I also know personally, into my business, and to share. So
well,
I think
because I got a lot of friends. Okay, I got a lot of friends.
right,
Everybody
right.
not on here. There is definitely, and even before you became published author, even before that, I was like, I need to get her on here because this voice, right? And we resonate with that in terms of the empowerment of women. And
Yes.
I'm really focused and honed in on the voice and empowering the voice. And I'm like, wait a minute, these women, I've been dining off of your voices forever, and I'm like, it needs a platform. And so even if that platform is my Facebook followers, I'm like, y'all come and be blessed. So yes, be honored because this is very deliberate that
Yeah.
we have here today. So I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so here's the other thing about, I guess, where my heart is. This is the first opportunity since the book has been published for me to come on anyone's platform to talk about where I have been in the journey to even getting this work out. Because here's what I didn't know. So I knew the book was going to change other people's lives who were going to read it. I knew that writing a book, like getting to the point of completing a whole manuscript for me, who I am, right, as a writer, was going to be a big deal. I did not know that it was going to physically change my life. And here's the extra fun part. I didn't know that I would have to do all of this while being laid off in the middle of a pandemic and trying to nurture a child who is high needs, right? And work with my husband on our family business and still figure out how to get the energy to write in the middle of a pandemic and a cultural uprising, a racial justice revolution, and to put this forth in that particular context. And having to do that has changed me. So I get to share the journey of what I have gone through to get to this point, and to reconnect with joy, because it's, being a creative is beautiful. It's energizing.
Mm-hmm.
And once you use that energy, there is a process of regaining and recapturing that capacity to keep going and to
Mm-hmm.
keep expounding that energy. And so
Mm-hmm.
this is a different experience than any other kind of creative work that I've done. So being able to kind of share that part of the journey, but then also to be able to share the book, y'all, like I'm so excited. Okay, so I have to just say this because Jamie got hers. And the reason is because I did a pre-launch, which a lot of authors do, but it's really reserved for the traditional publishing world to do, the pre-launch and kind of it's considered a more fancy and more structured process. As an independent author who published herself under my own publishing company, it's not a typical approach. And I did it even more unique by using a Kickstarter campaign to do it. And the average author sells about 100 books in the lifetime of their book. And my goal, because I had to pivot, right? So job goes away, get laid off. There are no more students in the colleges to teach and to support and do leadership development with. And I'm already writing this book and I have to finish it because now is the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
God is like, now, go, now, do it. And I'm going and I'm writing and I'm editing and I'm like, I don't know what this is going to mean, all that, but I need to get this done. And to do the Kickstarter means my goal is I want to become known as an author. I have a lot of titles. Like I said, coach, consultant, educator, leadership strategist, trainer, diversity, cultural diversity. All of these things are things that I do. Being an author in this capacity was something that's very important to me at this season in my life. And I felt like this needed to be quality, and I needed to make sure that I was making that clear that this is going to be a central focus of what I do moving forward. So the average author doesn't sell more than 100, maybe 200 copies in the lifetime of their book as an independent author without a big publishing house and all that. The Kickstarter, my goal was to sell 100 copies so that I would at least get a head start on saying I am truly an author who's serious about making sure this message gets out in the world. Through the grace of God and every person who was who participated in the success, a partner in my success, including you, Miss Jamie, I was able to pre-sale 140 copies of the book, and now it's more like 160, 170 with the launch on Amazon. And that has been a joy to me because it lets me know that, I put a year into writing and publishing and editing this book. So last year, this time, I was writing the first draft, okay, at my desk. At my job, I do my regular work hours, and then I spend a few hours a day trying to get that draft. And let me tell you something, that draft was trash, girl. It was trash. I can't do nothing with that. I can't do nothing with that draft. No, I cannot. No, I cannot. And let me tell you what happened. I was just like, but God, I'm a good writer. I have multiple degrees. I have awards for writing. How am I writing a trash?
What is the
draft? How does this work? Like, I've been thinking about this book for years. I know the content. It's trash. Like, and I got defeated, right? Like we often do. We put our best foot out there, our best foot forward. We try a new thing. We get excited and it doesn't work out that first time. And we be like, oh gosh, okay, well, maybe I was wrong. And so for about 2 months, I put it down. I said, okay, well, I failed, right? I tried. I failed. I need to find something else to do. Really? The coach, the person who would never let her client do that. Right? But here I was like, I give up. I tried. I can't do it. Limiting belief, negative self-talk, all the things, right? Doing all the things that are self-sabotaging and just saying, see, this just confirms that that's why I am not good enough to be an author. And I put it down
Mm.
for a couple of months and I lamented on how horrible, I was and all these things. And there was a shift in a few things that brought me to a point where I said, is there anything salvageable in this draft? Is there anything I can use? And maybe I can just take out of the 20 pages of that first draft to just get it down. Maybe I can take 5 pages. Maybe I can get 5 pages out of this and just use it to make a launch for like a little ebook or a little workbook or something. I can make something work. And I went back and did that with some fresh eyes, right? Not giving up on yourself, right? Taking another chance, understanding that success is a process. It is not a windfall that suddenly happens and ta-da, everything's wonderful. That it is something that you commit to and that you work at as you grow, and you take the lessons with that. And then you apply them and then you keep going. And sometimes that's not our natural way of dealing with what we consider failure or rejection or defeat, if it's not perfect. And we have a sickness with perfectionism, right? We think perfectionism is about being our best, because that is what I was taught. I was taught this. My grandmother taught me when I was little. Okay, you say good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better is your best. Right? This is what I've been learning since I was 5. I learned that when I was 5. This is really encouraging advice until real life meets those words and rubber meets the road, and you realize that your best is not flawless in that particular way. That even what we might think of are flaws are actually a part of the best. That's part of what makes it unique and perfect and authentic and all the things that we actually really value deeper when we take a closer look. But on the surface, we just go, oh my God, discard it. Oh, it's a problem. It's not perfect. And what we're really saying is it's not the most acceptable thing that looks like everybody else's thing. And because of that, I'm going to call it imperfect. Somebody else will call it imperfect. And therefore, I want to do away with it now.
Yes.
I'm going to beat everybody else to the punch before they have a chance to criticize it and tell me how bad it really is. I'm just going to skip that process and I'm going to tell myself how bad it is, and I'm never going to let it go. Right. And so, and I had to own that crap. I had to own that crap that was not going to be the way, the truth, or the light. And that is not who God created me to be. Right. I am resilient. I can do this. God has set me up with talents and gifts and all these. I am capable. I just need some more time, right? I had to go back. Am I capable of this? Yes, I am. I need to do some more time. So I went back. I carved out about 3-4 pages from that and said, okay, I have something. All right. So most of it was trash, but I have something.
Hold on. What pages did you use? I'm a fool, but that's the question that came to me. What pages did you use?
You know what? Honestly, the things that became the foundation were the butterfly, the tree, and the sun, which I think is chapter 10, 11, and 12.
Okay.
That is probably the most successful piece of that first draft. And it's it's talking about the tree and how trees have roots and how we have to transform and how our growth is not always instantaneous. Sometimes we need to be planted and cultivated in the soil. Sometimes we need to be watered and sit there in the seed stage before we have the amazing growth to become the tree. And trees grow over time. It's usually a long-term process. And then there are certain types of trees that have a different growth pattern. And so we need to recognize that just because we're not the tree today doesn't mean we're not growing. So that was one of the principles. The other is the butterfly, and I love butterflies. It's right out there on the cover. And just the metamorphosis and the transition that butterflies go through. And there's so many things, so many lessons to learn from nature and so many lessons to learn from butterflies. And just the chrysalis stage, being in isolation, literally not a caterpillar and you're not a butterfly. You are nothing other than some goo. And that's important. And you know, if you're in that stage where you are literally like, I feel like I have melted and fallen apart, my life feels like it is no longer anything that I recognize, keep going, right?
Right.
Because there is another level to get to. It's not over and you're not done, right? There is a purpose and an intention to that part of the process. And then the last part, which is, you know, be like the sun, to shine and bring warmth, to shed light. Yes, with this yellow polka dots. Yes, love. Right. And you know, the same heat, right? The same fire that can harden a boiled egg can soften a potato. So use the sun, use your light, use that fire that you have, use it correctly. Use it to illuminate the good things. Use it to advocate for those who need their voices amplified. Use it with purpose. And so those are the pieces from that first draft that carried over, and I'm so grateful now for that trash first draft because it helps set the foundation. My goal, and this is the other thing, when you're ready to grow, you allow things to happen that are not necessarily according to your plan. See, that's the difference
Mhm.
between visioning and goal setting. Goal setting is time bound. Goal setting is very specific, right? There are some specific step by steps that you need to get to. Vision is timeless. It's not time bound. Vision is for now, for later, for tomorrow. It is, and it can flow in what that iteration looks like because it's tied to those values. So it can show up differently. My goal was to write a book on vision boards and how to get the most from your vision board. And this was going to be 20, 25 pages at the most. What you have in your hands is not that book. There is a section on vision boards. What you
Mhm.
have is, what do you need to do to get over the trash that you have experienced, the junk that you're holding on to, the limiting beliefs that you think are the truth about you, that you think are your character, but they're really just the baggage from your experience that is holding you back from having like going forth fully in your vision. That's what that book is about. And then,
See, and
yes, I
this
got a section on vision boards, and it's just not the same thing. And what you hold in your hands is not a 25-page book, but it's 149 pages. This was soul stirring. When I started, God was like, there is more. And because you have chosen to come back to this process and didn't give up on that first draft, there's so much more that I'm going to release in you that you did not know was going to come out, but you did not know was there. I didn't know I was writing that book. I didn't know that until it was done.
see the you first of all, you answered my first probing question, which is what is vision. Um, and I love how you distinguish it from goal settings. And what I hear in that is it's about depth and altitude, right? Rather than just kind of, just spreading out and just doing more of this and more of that and more and more and more. It's like, wait a minute, let's be here, let's go deeper and let's go higher. And you know, with the vision boards and with the goal settings and things of that nature, and I know I'm sure you're familiar with this as a coach as well, is that as coaching clients, as people who seek coaching, we come because we have a goal, we have an intention, we have something that we want to accomplish, right? And coaching is future focused. But what we may not often recognize is that what we're doing to get to, see, if you could do what you wanted to do at the level you were at, you would have done it, right? And so you're seeking a coach because it's like, I got a blind spot somewhere, something happening somewhere, I don't see it. And so oftentimes we think we're going for consultation, right? We think we're going for somebody to be like, hey, get your vision board, write this, do this, go there, do this 5 times a day, spin around, do 5 jumping jacks, and and
Yeah.
huzzah, right? So we think we're going for consultation, but for coaching, I mean, the philosophy is like, you have everything you need within you. Yeah, you have it, but you might not have access to it right now because of the junk, right, that you've layered on. And so you can't see it, you can't hear it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't touch it. And in that limitation, in the box that we come to the coach in, we might not have access to it. And so the coach is going to be like, okay, let's dig deeper. Okay, let's go a little deeper than that. We're going to ask these questions, and get curious and start to excavate. And then you're going to find, so so I love that you make that distinction, because I think the source of frustration for people so many times is that we'll often reach for the book to give us the magic recipe, right? And the real magic is go within and do the work there, so that then when you are creating your vision board, when you are looking at your goals, they truly reflect who you are at your core, right? You're not recycling this, narrative of a society that has fed you. Because the thing is if we oftentimes when we do that, again, another source of frustration, because it's like, okay, I got it, now what? I'm not happy, I'm not fulfilled, I'm not this, that, and the other. So what I'm hearing from you is that God said you thought you was coming for the rooter, but I gave you the rooter to the tutor. Because it's, and oftentimes I'm sure you experience this too as a coach. We getting fed off of it too. And that's what I hear you saying on your process. It was like this, I thought I have stuff to give to you. And you are, Alexandria, you're a very generous person. And you have so much. Child, just a little insight into our relationship and who Alexandria is. She will, when Alexandria introduces you, you are completely and thoroughly introduced. She will identify attributes that you was like, oh, that's me. I guess I do that. I didn't realize I do that. When you're trying to think of a name for something, it's like, and she will bring those pieces together, and just so generously, right? Like, this is just an extension of her being. This is who you are. You're generous, right? I'm about to give these people a tool. And God said, I have something for all of you.
No, absolutely. Let me tell you something. One of the things that has happened because of COVID-19, I have had to reread my book for myself, certain chapters for myself, to remind me of what it really is. And what I have seen is, I was like, oh, I had to write this book before, like, I began writing the book, and I think the last 2 chapters and the last round of edits were done during the pandemic, right? I had to start this process so that I would have this book for me to get me through this particular change of affairs in terms of culture and everything that's going forward. Because the reality is that we often forget who we are.
Mm-hmm.
We forget what we've accomplished. Life is happening day by day. You cannot tell me what you were doing last February on the 27th of the month, right? But maybe as a friend or as a coach or as a consultant, I have it in my calendar that you were making a presentation or receiving an award or something that I believed elevated you and showed a piece of who you were. And so you had that special day, but then you moved on because new challenges arise and different challenges come forward, and new decisions have to be made, and new goals and new plans have to get set. I spend a lot of time in sessions with my clients, asking them to write down and remember where they have been, accomplishments, publications, interviews like this. And when they look over the list, they'll go, well, I guess I did get a few more things done than I had, because the negative self-talk was, I'm not productive enough. I haven't done enough. I'm not where I wanted to be. I am, not effective. I think I should really just maybe put this down because maybe this isn't working. And I'm like, okay, if you're ready to transition, that's fine. but we're going to honor what you have done. We're not going to gloss over that. And women, we tend to do that. Society helps us do that. They say you always have something to go run after, go achieve, and go get. And women, if your accomplishments are not marriage and children and maybe a very traditional long-standing career where you wear a suit to your job and you have a particular kind of title, then outside of those three things, women are not considered successful. And I'm like, we got to redefine success, because that doesn't work for most women, and that doesn't work for Black women. That doesn't work for working class women. That doesn't work for the woman who is, working an hourly wage job, supporting herself and her family, and maybe helping out a neighbor who consistently needs that support and depends on that person to show up for them. We have to honor that. That's leadership too.
Right.
We have to
Yes.
honor that, right? We have to honor the person who has been running a nonprofit for 20 years where they feed people in the community, or where they do, clothing drives, or where they are writing, helping people get access to funds through a system where people are struggling with literacy or struggling with recidivism from coming back from imprisonment, struggling with all kinds of things. We don't look at that person as a leader if they don't have flash, if they don't have so much funding, if they're not featured in magazines. But our society does not work without these women. Right? And so we've got to be able to, on the outset, we've got to be able to help society change and look at women's work and women's leadership differently, because it is unique. It is not about position all the time. Leadership in itself is not all about position, but that's a very masculine way, a very male-centered way of thinking about leadership, right? And so women's work and women's leadership and how we determine success is a little bit different, and it helps expand on concepts of success and leadership, right? And so we've got to get the outside world to begin to honor the women who are doing this work, who we need in society, who are sacrificing and giving of themselves, who are seeing needs and just meeting the need and not looking for a title or a thank you or recognition. They just believe it is necessary work. And that's love in action, right? So they're being leaders, and we need that. And we need to encourage other people, men and women, to show up in that type of leadership, that it's not all about getting accolades in order to lead and make a difference in your community and make a difference in your family, wherever that difference is. It's not about small scale or large scale. Oh, the city council person or the senator, my elected official, he's doing big leadership. But, the person who's making sure that their family runs well, or who's a principal at a school, she's doing smaller scale leadership. No, it's all leadership. It's all making a difference. It's all important, necessary work, right? But here's the other side of that. We've got to get women to recognize and own their leadership, their leadership potential, their leadership, the ways that they are showing up as leaders. It's not insufficient. It's not, well, I'm doing this little thing on the side. How many times have you heard the women who you talk to, the women who are your friends, even, not even just clients, say, well, I'm doing a little something, and you listen to that, you're like, girl, that's like a whole thing you're doing over there.
Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth.
Because it's coming from a place of, that song you wrote, that book you wrote, that performance that you did, the child that you're mentoring in your community, the tutoring that you're offering is a little thing. That side project, right? The side hustle is not as significant as your career. Oh, that's so nice that you do plays on the weekend, right? But that's nothing compared to the real work, which is whatever your job or your career. Actually, it's all of that. And so women, I want us to be able to honor the fact that our journey may look different, but that we are really leaders. You are a leader in your family. You are leaders in your churches. You are leaders in your communities, and you're leaders at your jobs. If you've ever worked at a large corporation, you know that there are the people who are the boss, the big bosses, but you know that the people who work for them, their assistants, their managers, their VPs, all of it, those are the people that make the whole organization go round, right? And a lot of times those are the women, because at the very top of all of these organizations, you mostly see men and you mostly see white men.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually women who are doing the structural work underneath these men who are at the top. No shade to those men. If you are acting in integrity and you are honoring the work of your team, I salute you. But let's just not say that because that woman does not have the top title that she's not leading in her work and in her life, because it's just not true.
And it's very essential. I love the distinctions that you're making in terms of the masculine brand of leadership and feminine brand of leadership. It is very essential for us to show up fully and wholly, and to lean into and to choose to lead from our femininity, right? Because another pitfall or temptation, really, or really survival mechanism that we find that some women adopt to operate in these spaces, these typically masculine spaces, is that we will adopt or adapt a masculine style of leadership. And the thing is, like you said, male masculine leaders who, are have integrity and all of that. Cool. Also, we're real clear that culturally we are off balance, right? We have for far too long exalted the male voice, the male position, male supremacy, right? That, like, just, it's just off. And what you're describing is this denigrating, this belittling, this omitting of this feminine contribution. And so I'm right there with you in that, it is a passion of mine as well. It is our work to activate these sisters out here. Like, girl, you do understand, this one of the terms that was born out of this pandemic was this notion of the essential worker, right? And that's a whole nother conversation. But one of the things, actually, in my coaching session with my coach, he told me, he was like, so you have to start to consider yourself as essential. And the work that you do as essential. And for me, as a primary performer and artist, you talk about shut down. Nobody's going to the opera house right now. Nobody's going out to see performance. And so the narrative could be that the arts are not essential. Right? And so having that conversation around deliberately telling and speaking to ourselves and remembering, like you said, remembering who we are, remembering our essentialness in our realm, in our bodies, in our families, in our communities, in our world, to really highlight that and to highlight the essentialness in the form in which it comes. We are intentionally feminine. Like, this is no accident, right? This is no shortcoming or lack that we have to overcome. Even though, again, that's a narrative that, depending upon what space you're in, can be regurgitated.
Right. But I think that's oh no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Megan said, I needed this today. I mean, really, we all over here, getting refilled and reminded, and that Alexandria have published this book to help to not only yourself, because I'm for real, I'm all about projects, girl. I'm always doing something. And as I was looking through the table of contents, I'm like, oh, you get right away that this is more than just okay, I want to do this thing. How do I do it? That this is getting to the heart. I mean, chapter 5 is broken vision, and then right away it's like, well, what breaks the vision? What does a broke vision look like? Permission to vision. Come on, because that's something that I have been hearing in this conversation, and I would love to hear. Oh gosh, girl, we ain't got enough time to do all the things I want to talk to you about. But I'm just like, one of the things that's coming up during this time of racial revolution, right, is this new awareness that's created for many people and this expanded awareness for others. And it's like many of us have been in survival mode for so long in our lives that we haven't even been granted the space to imagine.
Yeah.
We just out here trying to live and
Yeah.
try to survive. And this is a conversation within the opera community. Many of my Black colleagues, it's like, now that we're sitting still and we're realizing we've not even had a chance to really vision what
Yeah.
does it look like to be
Yeah.
fully and completely Black in this
Mm-hmm.
realm. We haven't been permitted to, because we just try. I mean, I'm just trying to get on the stage,
Yeah.
and if I do too much, if I try to change, if I try to make this thing align with me and my core, that'll be too disruptive, and then I won't be able to get on the stage. So I'm not going to do that. And now we're in a space where everybody has been called to pause on some level, and that has permitted this. And so I'm curious as to how you have been called to show up in this time.
Whew. So I appreciate the question, and primarily, and I just want to reflect on something that you said, because it is a feeling that I have been working through a lot. So in addition to working on this brand, Yes She Leads, that is specific to women, and sort of comes from a space of dealing with personal development. The professional development side is leadership and cultural awareness and cultural diversity work. And I have, for the last year and a half, been experiencing what you're beginning to describe, which is called racial battle fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I have done work. I've been hired to facilitate organizations that are predominantly white. I don't mind talking to white people about race. We can go on and on and on. I felt, though, last year that I was hitting a brick wall about having to have the same level of reoccurring conversation, that I was not in a position to go deeper
Mm-hmm.
into some of the work. And you and I, having come from an Africana background, we've spent 20 years on this already.
Yeah. We're not new to this. That's what people, I've just been really seeing a lot of people come through like, this is not new work. It's not new.
It's not new work at all.
And we're babies in it even then. So yeah.
And so while there are certain things that have changed and shifted and grown, and there's always space to learn, I was beginning to have a lot of challenges with defending the validity of this work. I'm often the youngest person in some of the conversations, especially if they're larger organizations that have hired me. We're talking about professional folks who, have, they're 40s, 50s, and 60s, sometimes coming close to retirement, and they feel like they know their niche. They know that topic. And I'm like, yes, you do. And I want to honor your knowledge, right? I want to honor your experiential knowledge. I want to honor your industry-based knowledge. But let me explain to you that you do not know the intersection between the work that you love and this conversation here. There is a big gap between that. And I can speak the language of bringing that intersection together, and having to fight to justify the fact that they had to recognize that there's something that they did not know that they didn't know. And that this young Black woman has something to school them on.
Mm-hmm.
And having to fight that became exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually had one contract end. It was not renewed, and it was not pleasant, because they literally refused to do the work. And the people of color who were in that organization also stood behind them and said, hey, we think what you're saying is good, but we're not doing this, right? And so whether they were trying to protect themselves in an organization, whether it was because their long-standing ideologies actually aligned with that because they've been told what's supposed to happen, I am not sure. I don't want to accuse them of anything in terms of their intention or how they came about it, but it hurt because it's work that I know today, right now, they absolutely must be hiring somebody to deal with it, right? But last year, it wasn't something they were ready to really approach. And so from that point, I just retreated into my very Black life. I work at HBCUs. I have a church that I attend that is racially diverse. It truly is, but it's intentionally structured to say if you are white or another race of person who wants to join this collective body, praise God for you. We welcome you, but we are intentionally staying true to a pretty Black cultural aesthetic to ensure that we are nurturing the heart and soul of what God called us to minister to this group of people. Mm-hmm. And so we talking racial equity within that community, but I only chose to interact with white people who I knew were not going to combat the conversations. We can have the conversations. I want to be open. I am never going to say based on your race or based on your gender that we cannot talk. That's not who I am. Mm-hmm. But I will say, if you are wanting to fight me on the validity of these conversations needing to be had, I am no longer in a position to have them. So when the uprising began, and I mean before we're talking about protests and rioting, when there were certain conversations starting to swell, I was kind of like, I'm over here, I got my baby. I have a amazing special needs 4-year-old who needs a lot of support and attention. I'm trying to raise my child. I'm trying to figure out my job. I have college students to support. They are on the front lines. I need to encourage them and empower them and motivate them so that they're the new breath. They can deal with these combats. I need to prepare and equip them. I am not out here in these streets trying to argue with people who are trying to diminish my value as a human being and the fact that I have nearly 20 years of experience and training on this topic. She's not doing that today. If you want to come to me with a contract and you want to come to me and say, we value your voice or we value where you've come from and we would like to bring you on to do some work, I am here for that. But trying to go and fight the good fight, I am fatigued. I am tired. I was tired. She tired.
So many of us is out here tired. And it's like, I'm not doing that no more. And, one of the things, like you said, in this new space where people are presenting as more ready, yes. One of the concerns that many people are expressing is they have their declarations and be like, I'm listening. I hear you. I see you, right? Like there's that script, right? Which I'm done seeing that show. And then they're saying, we're going to hire someone to come in and review and da-da-da-da. And what many of us Black folk who have heard that story and seen that dance before, it's like, yeah, but did you go and do what they say?
Listen, no, they're not. No, they're not. They're not going to do it because let me explain. Somebody, I had a wonderful friend just text me. She might be watching because I definitely told her to tune in. A wonderful friend just text me, and I won't mention the organization, but it is a large organization, okay? And they have started an anti-racism committee for this organization. And she asked me if I could come and speak with them. I said, are they going to be open to it? Now, I need their permission to come in if I were to do some work, but I don't need your permission to say the right thing so that you're comfortable. She said back to me, I don't know if you can come in for real, but I feel like I need you to because they're talking about let's do this anti-racism work without actually having to. We don't have to use our own experience. Nobody has to try to defend themselves personally. We're just going to talk about, how this applies to society. And I said, That is a critical mistake. And me, who has uh, years of experience training organizations and knows that that's a critical mistake, because the personal is what we, as Audre Lorde says, the personal is political, but the personal is also professional. And if we're going to have this conversation in a workplace, we must deal with work-based discrimination. We must deal with how this implicitly impacts this environment right here. And we cannot talk about all of the other ways that police brutality happens without talking about the policing that happens in our workplace. We can't do that without talking about the policies that are here governing our day-to-day life. We cannot talk about that without owning, if there are people sitting in this committee and in this room who've experienced a microaggression, or what I like to call macroaggressions, from someone who's sitting across from them saying, I'm ready to be better. What are you ready to be better from? Let's acknowledge our starting place. We don't have to criticize and castigate and make someone feel downtrodden for where they're coming from, but we need to own and acknowledge our starting place so that we can grow. And that's a fundamental part of personal development that I think is understood, like what you were saying with coaching. Yes, we're looking forward towards the future and we're trying to make plans, but what are we trying to make plans from? Where have we been, and what have we tried already that maybe was unsuccessful, that we need to look at differently to make a future plan? That's understood in the personal development world. It is a lot less understood from the professional world, especially when it comes to this conversation. I love cultural diversity. I'm a proponent for diversity, but anti-racism work is not the same as diversity. And I want us to be very clear about that for those who are saying, yes, I am up for the challenge. It requires, anti-racism work requires deconstructing some fundamental practices and ideas that you feel are normal, that you are recognizing with the current truth are only normal because they have made a villain and a villain and a problem out of one person or another, right? And that is completely based on the structures of race and oppression and systemic racism and all of these other processes. So if you're not ready to tear nothing down, you're not talking about anti-racism. You might be talking about inclusion. You maybe you're talking about the first layer of diversity, which is variety. But you are not talking about cultural diversity. You are not talking about oppression reduction. You are not talking about change that will make safe spaces long-term for not just the people who are sitting here at this table, but for any other person who is to come. Because that's what real anti-racism work and real cultural diversity, when you go deep, like you said, the depth, when you can go deeper into the work, those are the types of results. You're going to get you can have a person who's a leader of an organization change how they do their thing. When they step down, when they retire, if they did not make systemic changes, structural changes within that organization, you're going to see the same problem replicated. So you're not really shifting the culture. And that's why I said they're not going to do it. It's not because they don't desire to do something, but they desire to work that is about personal responsibility. I appreciate you. That's the first layer of it. But when we're talking about structured environments that will stay longer than the person who's making the call, then we have to talk about what is it that needs to fundamentally change, what structure needs to be uprooted and shifted, so that when we get to this conversation 10 years from now and people have retired, left their job, moved across the country, that the new influx of folks who are coming in are still experiencing the benefits of the blood, the sweat, and the tears of those who have done the work today. So if we're not talking about that, then we're not talking about anti-racism, my friend. We're talking about how do we get along better in this society. We're talking about how can we
not get called out? How can we not get called out and canceled in the current? That's really what they're trying to do. They're trying to do damage control, trying to avoid getting canceled. And that's the distinction between
And
change and transformation.
absolutely. And that's not bad that they want to say, hey, we don't want to be out here getting canceled. We don't want to be out here the bad guy. We are not like them, whoever they're pointing to as the example of the bad thing. It's just the first step. That's not your destination. That is the first step to recognizing that there is an issue that needs your support and change. So as soon as the pressure gets let off, if you think that's the definition, the destination, if you think the revolution is the fact that you came to the conclusion that there's change needed, then once the change happens, once the pressure is lifted from you, you feel like, whoa, ta-da, I have done a great work. It has been amazing and wonderful. Change has come, fight the power, and I've done my due diligence. When the reality is that the other person who's been sitting with this for the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years of their lives are like, what? Welcome. This was the welcome party. This was the how you doing? Nice to meet you. This is the meet and greet. This is not the work. You have not sat down with the case files and started doing the Excel spreadsheets that get to the real thing. You haven't done the work yet. You've been introduced to the work.
There's this analogy that my family and I, you know me and my family, we are who and how we are. And an analogy that we use is kind of crass, but the racism is crass, right? But it's like you have made a mess in your pants. Okay. You made a mess in your pants about 400 years ago. You're just walking around with it, right? You don't smell it. You don't see it. You're not having a deal. You blissful, right? But everyone else who interacts with you is smelling the stench of your mess. And so what I hear you say is to think that the fact that you now smell yourself and to say, yay, I smell myself. We're done. And we over here like, yeah, we've been smelling you. We've been telling you, like, sir, ma'am, I need you to tend to that, right? So it's not just the fact, like, we're excited that you smell it, right? Because you got to smell it to know that there's something there. So now we're like, could you go into the washroom and clean it up, disinfect, throw that in the trash. Like, that needs to go. You've been wearing that for 400 years. It needs to go. Put on some unsoiled things, right?
Yeah.
Changing of policies and structures so that you can be clean and so that we can be free of the stench of your racist structures. So we got, I know we close to time, but we had this, well, not close to time, we're a little bit over time. But so Valerie Joyce Taylor Wilson, also known as my mother, says, Alexandria, have you read the newly popularized literature calling out white privilege and the myth of white supremacy? And she goes on to give us some, me and white supremacy, white fragility, and she also shares the myth, the new Jim Crow. Have you engaged with, because we know you're a scholar, right? So have you engaged with, and how have you engaged with any of these things?
So I'm working on it. So Stand From the Beginning, Ibrahim X, I was a part of the African Association of Student Scholars with him years ago. And we met when he was still writing his dissertation that would later become his book. And he also wrote How to Be an Anti-Racist, right? And he's written that recently. Mm-hmm. I will tell you that I started listening to Me and White Supremacy on audiobook. I think that the approach that that the author is making is a really good one. She lives in Dubai, so her world is very international. But I think for that reason, there's something that feels a little more palatable about it because it's not dealing with United States Black and white Southern Jim Crow racism in that regard, that I think makes it a little bit, takes the edge off of some of the way that the the United States is not the inventor of racism, but we are
Mm-hmm.
definitely the centrifuge of having the conversation, because we propel ourselves to be the land of the free and the home of the brave, and it flies in direct contradiction to the ways in which Black and brown people experience life, right? And so because we champion that so hard, and we say we're the melting pot and all of these things that are around our nationality, that fly in the face of those who are nationality wise, I'm an American, but do I receive the full benefits of that citizenship? No. And so when we can take that conversation and make it international, it does help us to be more globally minded and global citizens, but it also removes the sting of the American racism, uh, the soil of that, the stench of that. And I think some of the books that are very popular who don't have to go that route, I definitely approach those books with a specific ear to say, do you all acknowledge and honor the fact that this is a unique situation? And Layla Saeed, I think is her name, because I'm listening to the audiobook now. She does acknowledge that. So I think that there are a lot of different ways that people are trying to engage with the literature. And I love reading, and I love the books, and I love the knowledge, but I am a little bit leery of the person who's just becoming new to this conversation, who is wanting to depend on the books to tell them what's right and wrong above the experience of their neighbor. As a Christian, you asked me earlier, where am I being called into this? I believe that the conversations that I will be having ongoing, probably for the rest of my life, is dealing with Christians who are trying to figure out how do they have a social justice, race-based conversation with their faith. I am not I'm learning that there are people who have not understood how that conversation complements one another. But I am from the tutelage of Dr. Martin D. Luther King, and not just I Have a Dream speech, but really how he took a faith-based approach to justice and to humanity and some other things around race and civil rights and all of that. So I have never understood them to be separate for how I was raised. But I understand that there are others who have not understood that, or they have a very snapshot, small picture of who Martin Luther King and other folks like the recently passed C.T. Vivian, one of my dear loved ones, Joseph Lowry, who was a reverend for many years in the United Methodist tradition, who did not see separation of these ideas. And they saw the relationship between them, and they spoke from that for their entire lives. And these two men have just recently passed on in the last year. And so, there is a loss of that language around faith and justice being inextricably tied together, that I think that there's a place for me to speak into that. But that is about being a good neighbor. That is about love your neighbors as you love yourself. Like we can pull on the scriptures. We can do it in terms of how you are to show up, right? We can talk about the very popular, what is the word I'm thinking of? I don't want to call it a Bible story, but it's a scripture in the Bible that talks about the Good Samaritan, right? And this is someone who it's about people who are foreigners, people who are not, they're not even neighbors, as in they live in the same place. They're from different cultures. They're from different worlds. They're from different societies, different traditions, right? And one of them takes care of the other in a way that's like, oh, wow, I can't believe that you just took care of someone who was not your kind, in a way that was loving and generous and holy, for lack of a better word, right? And so there are all of these biblical examples where it shows us the way. And I'm finding more and more that there are people who call themselves Christians who are really in rejection of that idea. And part of that being that they want to go to books and find out from a book what is right and wrong, and intellectualize it first
Mm.
before they're
Yes.
willing to listen to the experience of the people in their neighborhood, the people in their community, the people in their churches. And so I am a little bit leery. I love a good book. I want book clubs on race and racism and all that type of thing to happen and flourish. And I think the research that these scholars have done is extensive, and they put their heart and their soul into it. And I think there's something very meaty about that. And I believe that at some point I will write a book that speaks to some of these things as well. So I hope that at that time, when that time comes, it will be timely. It will help someone understand. But what I hope is that it will lead them to go have the deeper conversations with the people in their actual life. A lot of times when we're talking about in the professional world, or we're talking about in the community aspect of how to deal with race, we're talking about people who are myths to us. We're talking about fictitious examples. We're talking about statistics and numbers. We're talking about the Black people, the white people, the Latinos in this very massive collective way that doesn't have anything to do with who do you know, who is in proximity to you that you can have a direct impact on making a difference in how you interact. Who can you learn from? Who is your, like, a person that you talk to, another parent at the school where you pick up your child that you don't have a relationship with, but you're talking in this manner of them over there, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to even just getting grounded first in who is your neighbor? Are you really listening to the people in your life? If you are a person who has family members who are of different cultures, races, and ethnicities, are you actually talking to them, or have you made assumptions about who they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so before we get to the point where we're saying, let's look to the research, right? Let's look to the ivory tower to say what has been properly vetted. Let's actually have those conversations and encourage, especially white people who are saying, I want to be a better ally. I want to understand better and know better. Let this be a part of your personal development, right? That you are saying, I will grow and commit to grow in this area. So when I read a book, I'm going to go also, I'm not going to rely on that knowledge alone. I'm going to actually seek out the knowledge and experiential knowledge of the people in my life to help inform how I move forward and how I proceed.
I mean, it goes back to, your approach to your book, right? To where it's not about the doing of the vision board and such. It's not about just the checking the box of I read these books.
Yeah.
It's about relationship, and it's
Yes,
about
absolutely.
humanity.
Absolutely. One of the things that people will often say is, I just want us to not fight. I just want everybody to be treated equally. I just want this to be over, especially when we're talking about uprisings and riots and civil unrest. And, why do we have to keep talking about it? Can't we just get to a place where we all acknowledge that we're human? Yes, we'd also like that too. We also understand that it's more than just saying, I'd like that. There has to be some action words and some action steps behind that. So for the person who says, I just want everybody to be treated equally and treated better, and we all to be brothers and sisters. Yes. Would you please share with me your ideas of how that would happen? What are the things that you are willing to do to make that happen? What are the things that the people of color in your life are asking of you to do? What can you meet those particular needs? I can tell you, this is what I want, X, Y, and Z on CNN, because I'm a pundit or a political voice or someone who's speaking from a particular experience, and you set off to start doing all those things because he or she said, well, this is what the Negro people have spoken and said. Go talk to the Negro people in your life. Go talk to the people who you have real relationships with. And if you don't have real relationships with people, then that's where you need to start,
There you
because
go.
that means that you have not done that basic work. And that means that you need to begin the relationship to then get to know that person, get to know that community of people. And that's where you start.
And it has to be, we've got it's a heart matter. And she
Yes.
says, But these folks are just beginning to realize on a cognitive level. So I see value in, and she's talking about in
Yeah.
terms of reading the books, but it is a matter of heart, so that even in the pursuit of new relationships, or in these deepening relationships, it must be heart led. It cannot be a voyeuristic experiment.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
people on the other side of the relationship can feel and discern it. And I, for one,
Yeah.
am not interested in becoming the Black in your life.
Well, yeah, I'm
That's
not your
another
pet
thing that I'm just
project.
not doing.
I'm
Right.
not your pet
Not your pet
project.
project. Not your
Yes,
pet project.
because I believe that, let's say, for example, there's a white person from my church who I maybe don't have a close relationship with, and they say, hey, can we just be buddies? And I'm like, oh, okay, sure, we can be friends and we can get to know each other. And that's fine. If they have an ulterior motive of, okay, well, I need to go be friends with more Black people, then that's going to be odd. If that person, though, instead says, I recognize that while we go to the same church, I really haven't taken the time to get to know many of the people here. I haven't taken time to get to know you or others. And I'm wanting to check and make sure that I'm not excluding building good relationships with people based on race. I'm working on myself, and I really would like to be able to get to know you better and other people better. I can then be on the same page with you, understand where you're coming from, and I don't feel like you're treating me like a project. You're being honest and transparent, right? Which is something I talk a lot about, being transparent and authentic within what it is that you are trying to achieve, and you're letting me in on that so that I
Yes.
can agree and say, yes, absolutely, I would love to get to know you and see if we can build relationships across race and across difference, so that we can get to know one another as real brothers and sisters in Christ, and we can be on the same page about that, versus being felt like, are you pandering to me? I don't understand. Like, so you want to be my friend and you want to go to the Black Lives Matter rally? Did I even tell you I go to that yet? Have I
Right.
even gotten to know, do you know me yet to say this is what I'm trying to learn from you? Or are you just making assumptions and bringing your assumptions and laying them across me? I need to be able to understand where you're coming from, because otherwise, I've done a lot of work to not look at people of different cultures and backgrounds suspiciously when they try to befriend me. I've had to do a lot of soul work to do that,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't want to get to the point where I have to look sideways and try to figure out, what are you trying to get from this? I don't want to do that. I want to be able to trust that if you're in my presence, if we are in community together, that I can assume the best from you until you've done something to show me differently. I need to be able to trust that I can say, I don't think that that was appropriate. Maybe you could have found another way to say that when it comes to race. And if you are in a space, and one of the terms that has become very popular lately is white fragility, which I don't
Mm-hmm.
write about this particularly in the book, but I do talk about the resilience of Black women and women of color who've had to overcome the stereotypes. Women uniquely have a lot of different types of stereotypes that are
Mm-hmm.
sometimes based in race, but are also about that intersection of race, gender, and class, and all these types of things that we have to overcome to have access to that vision. But when we have to encounter the fragility of white people, the fragility of men of different racial backgrounds, where we're trying to figure out, and similar to what you said with the opera, I'm a talented person. I know that I can do this work, but I want to make sure that I am showing up not only humbly, but making sure that I'm a little lowly, so that I don't seem to be over projecting onto them. I don't want to trigger them into thinking that they need to put me in my place, or that I'm not going to be cooperative, or maybe I'm an angry Black woman and I may be difficult to work with. So I'm going to lower myself just a touch. I'm going to shift the tone in my voice when I speak. Something that I do intentionally, because I've been told a lot of times, like, you just seem so angry, and it's probably because of my full head of
Texture.
nappy hair and chocolate skin, and the fact that I'm 6'2". I sometimes intentionally smile harder to communicate the point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to change the message because I need it to land, but I want to make sure that I'm saying it in a way that maybe you can receive it a little better. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's fake. And I've
That's
had to
work.
work to let that go. It's exhausting.
It's work. And you and what I hear you saying is it's like I'm done having to engage with that type of work in every aspect of my life. So
I can't do
you
that. I can't be
well-meaning
involved.
white woman church member coming to me, understand that I'm not interested. If we're gonna be friends, cool, right? If we're gonna establish a relationship, wonderful. I love people. I am not interested in doing that work of protecting and pretending and contorting myself so that you get it, especially in my personal space.
Absolutely. I can't be involved. I can't be involved because when I get hired to go out and do this work, I need to try to show up as fully as best as possible. I can't then uh, feel that in every aspect of my life. And thank God. I mean, the white people who are in my life, and they range in age and they range in their cultural knowledge as well. I want to say I had a white woman who I love who's at my church, and she's like, I know I've been told that I can't touch your hair, and I know that it's just not my place to do that. I just love, all of it. It's just so wonderful, but I know that's not the right thing to do. That is not the person. That level of cultural awareness is not what I'm going to say. Jamie and I are going to have that same conversation. Our
Right.
level of cultural awareness, we can talk about critical race theory. We can, talk about, we can go into a different place. So I am not expecting that every human being in my life be at the exact same knowledge level when it comes to all of these topics. What I respect about what this woman said was, I have been given instruction and I'm going to listen to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to find another way to try to express my affection and like, wow, it's so beautiful, because that's what I'm trying to say. And instead of just doing my own thing at my comfort level, and because, well, they should get it. They should get that what I'm trying to communicate is, oh, it's so beautiful and I think it's so special. I'm going to take in what I heard and I'm going to change my behavior
Mm-hmm.
so that I can respect you and others who are not going to experience it the same way. And I was like, well, I appreciate that, because that would have bothered me if you would have put your hands in my hair. It would have been a problem for me. And she was like, I've been told that, and it was just, and she was just so cute about it. But if she had done her own thing and said, well, I don't think it's really a
Right.
problem, and
Right.
dismissed that other person who was trying to share with her, don't do that. It's not a part of her cultural knowledge to know that that's a problem. But now that she's heard it and understood that it is, she made the choice to make a change in her behavior. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for listening to the voices of the real people who are in your life, who are saying, hey, we're in close proximity. We're getting to know one another. And I just want to share this with you. And if you continue to do it, I know that it's going to come across offensively. Can you make that choice? And that person say, yes, I can. Now, I want her to grow from there. I want to see
Right.
more, right? Because touching my hair is not going to save a person from being killed on the streets.
Oh, come on.
Right.
Yes.
You posted something, but that's a good start, because it says I'm listening. I'm
Right.
aware of the people around me. I'm paying attention to the things that I don't know, and I'm going to take that in. That's power. That's the
Yeah.
foundation for growth. But you said something, and I have a lot less grace for organizations and companies because they have more power and they can do more. You posted something a couple of weeks back that was like, you didn't change the names of your companies. You didn't dedicated days of Juneteenth where people can take off work, but you ain't changed nothing about your policy to stop people from getting killed on the street. You haven't asked for a politician to be held responsible for any of the things that are happening. Can we get Breonna Taylor's killers to be let off the job and
At the
be,
very least.
arrested, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can we get George Floyd's people? Like, it, the things that are being shifted are important, but they are minute in comparison to the ask that's being made. So we were asking for Aunt Jemima syrup to be changed because that was what was hurting our feelings. What we would get is This is a tradition that has dated back more than hundreds of years, and we just believe that we need to stand true to our word. And what we'll do instead of doing what you've asked us to do as a community of people, what we'll do is we'll hire some more diversity folks at the top of our marketing team. What we'll do is we will do a campaign, a hashtag campaign that shows, Aunt Jemima's generation, the next generation or something, and feature headscarves or something. Like, I don't know. It would be something that's like, that is not what we asked you for. So now that we're asking for something that is huge, is life-changing, life-saving, they're like, well, we can't go there. We can't quite do that. But you know what we could do? We could change all these brand names for you.
Right.
We can honor Juneteenth. What's Juneteenth? Somebody Google that real quick. We're gonna do that. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do
We
that.
can do that. That's fine. That's fine.
That's fine. That's fine. And we're going to say that we believe that Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Yes. We will get a black square just for you. Just for you.
We will. We are participating in the blackout date. Okay. All things we haven't asked for. Right. But bring that down to the level of the people that you interact with in your life. If the pundits are saying this is what Black people want, need, this is what you need to do, but the people in your life are saying, as a Black person, this is how you can help me feel safer in your presence, in your neighborhood, in your community, when I'm with you, when we hang out together. These are the words that I would like you not to use because they offend me. I know somebody else said, I know Jay-Z said it's not a problem. But you don't know Jay-Z and you don't live next to Jay-Z. Right. You don't go to church with Jay-Z. You go to church with me. You're my neighbor. You pick up my child and have play dates. And I am saying that these are the things that will help me feel safe. Please listen to me, who is in your life, or recognize that you don't respect me as a human being, a full human being who has these experiences, and that you will not.
Right.
These are choices.
Right.
Peace.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like we are now in a time, which is one of the exciting parts of it for me, is that we are in a time where it's like, okay, so we're just being clear. This is a time of clarity. 2020 vision, okay? Vision, real vision. Okay.
Here's the beautiful thing. So many people have said, throw 2020 away. 2020 is trash. 2020, can this year be over? And listen, 2020 ain't been no punk, okay? 2020 is here for your edges. They are here to
came
snatch.
Through, honey. Yes.
2020 is coming through, and they going hard, okay? They throwing some punches. And I'm telling you, I didn't have to like bob and weave a little bit. It's been a little rough. I don't want to underestimate. I don't want to oversimplify how challenging this year has been. People have lost their lives to a pandemic, to racism, to police brutality, to medical neglect for specific communities, to policies. You and I live in a state. We both, this is an interesting thing, we both come from a state that is very much concerned about how do we make choices that collectively benefit the most people at the largest amount of time, has the most impact. And we now live in a state where the goal is, how do we protect the economy above all and manage the fallout of people who gonna die, that we know we're gonna die, and we're gonna let them die. Yeah. And that has been a very tough pill for me to particularly swallow. I have never felt as unsafe as a Black woman in the South as I do right now.
Uncared for, unprotected.
Never felt this way before. I ran from California. I didn't run from California, but I ran from California to the East Coast because I felt like there was more cultural space, more air, more ability to be expressive. I'd never seen Black people do opera like you do until I got to the East Coast. I'd never seen, soul vegetarian food where it was like, wow, you all are making things that are explicit to our cultural experience, and also that has this approach of being healthy and different until I got to the East Coast. So there's so many rich things that happen here. And I moved to Atlanta. I moved to the South to be closer to family. My family's from Alabama and Texas and other things. And I felt like this is such a safe environment for me. And all of that is coming up into a space of contradiction at this time when the leadership of our entire state makes decisions that just feel so unsafe for me and for my child and other things. But I say all of that because it is been difficult. 2020 has been hard. But I am not of the belief that we need to throw 2020 in the trash. I am not of the belief that 2020 needs to be canceled. In fact, I feel like, and I'm going to circle all the way back to the book on this one. You can get the book at bit.ly/visionbook 2020. bit.ly/visionbook 2020. And it's available on Amazon. But I am of the belief that actually, like you said, clarity, 2020 is forcing everything cute on your vision board to get pulled away so that you can actually focus on the real things that you believe are supposed to be about your life. I had travel on my vision board. Raise your hand if you had travel on your vision board. Raise your hand if you're planning to go someplace out the country this year. Like, oh, I'm about to get my life on a beach. About to be in Turks and Caicos. I'm about to go to the Bahamas, something like that. Scratch it off your list. Scratch it off your list.
It's not happening.
It's not happening, right? And so what you then have to do is say, of the things that were on my vision board, that January 1, I said, ooh, 2020 is about to be my year. It's still your year.
Yes.
But now you have to consider, what is the opportunity now? Why did you want to travel? Because I want to see, I want to have an adventure, I want to explore. Why? Because it nourishes me. It makes me feel more relaxed and comfortable. Okay, so your vision is that I would have a more relaxed life. Your vision is not so I can go travel. So now that we got to the core value that's associated with that particular vision, right? How do you still access that? What are you still doing? I need to practice self-care because I'm not taking care of myself. And that's what travel is for me. Okay. Your vision is to provide self-care for yourself and to take care of your being. Travel was the vehicle. So now, what is the vehicle that you can choose so that you can still nourish and nurture yourself to get your needs met? What happens when the things that are really pretty and cute, everybody's not having brunch. We're not having, the cute mimosas at the patio restaurants every weekend. That's not it, right? What is it that you still are looking for? Is it connection? What are the values that are underneath those vision board opportunities? And stay true to those things. Stay true, because 2020 has not canceled your values. 2020 really hasn't canceled your vision. They canceled your goals. They canceled your goals for the year. But 2020 is a decade, boo. It's not just a year, it's a decade. So we have plenty of time to explore those things. Make sure that you get what you need out of this year still. Make sure that 2020 still works for you, that you get what you need from this year and this moment. For me, being laid off opened the door for me to write. That's great. It doesn't always feel great, but I said, I want to make sure that I maximize that opportunity. It's giving me an opportunity to learn my daughter more and how I can meet her needs, as opposed to what I personally wanted at this stage was to rely on her speech therapist and rely on her special education teachers who have all this training. The opportunity now is for me to learn, how do I support her in this growth, and for me to learn some of those things for her. Well, that's going to work for my long-term vision, because my long-term vision is to make sure that my child's needs are always met and that she has access to everything that she needs, right? So my values are still at play. Therefore, my vision is still at play. But I will have to take the cruise off my vision board. Right. It's not going to work right there. It's not going to work right there. Right now.
For the year, at the very least. Well, right. I mean, personally, the cruise is just coming off indefinitely, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but
But
you
that's
know what?
real life. But that's real life. Can your vision withstand the tossing and the turning of real life? And that's one thing that I deal with in the book in terms of transformation. Right now, you may feel like I was ready to be a butterfly and just sprout out there and flutter and fly. And really, what I'm learning is that I need to be good with being a seed. I need to sit still. I need to sit in the space that I'm in, and I need to be cultivated right here where I am because I will grow. And there will come a time when I can fly and flutter and be free. It's not today. I'm in a different season than I thought I was, but my vision is still being activated.
You see me over here jotting notes. You said 2020 hasn't canceled your vision; it canceled your goals.
Yes.
Okay. Well, notes taken. I will quote you. I will reference you, ma'am. And speaking of reference, can you tell us again what is the website for your book?
It is bit.ly /vision book 2020.
Vision book. We missed Vision book 2020. Thank you so much for that. And this has been
No .com on the back end. You don't need the .com. Thank you. I appreciate you.
For that.
Listen, managing these lower thirds. I appreciate that. You leveling up. Level up.
I am really just over here trying to be fancy, live my fancy life. Okay. I just really, this is a blessing for me. So this ticker tape with the websites is giving me life. And this entire conversation, I said that my intention was to fill cups. And I know my cup, I'm certainly, I've started flipping the pages. So don't you worry about that. But I'm don't you worry about that. Okay. The pages are flipping, but you just bless my whole life with that, leaning into that distinction about, vision versus goals. Yeah. And you said, can your vision withstand the tossing and turning of real life? So those are two tidbits that those are just only two, but two tidbits that I'm taking away from this call, from this conversation for my own self.
Listen, you better get it for yourself. You better get it.
Listen, I'm like, I hope y'all got it. But for my own self, that's what I got.
For me in my house.
At my house. We full over here, okay? So, I'm like, come and get you some of this free, honey. Come get you some of this free Your Real Vision, okay? By Alexandria Barabin Harris.
Unchain it, release it, dig it up from where you hid it when you was afraid, when you was living in your fear. Let it run round. Let it be free. Whatever that needs to do, whatever you need to uncage it, unbind it, whatever needs to happen. And it's got to be real vision for you to be able to get up and walk around in it. And real vision will sustain the test of time, and it will survive all the ups and downs of life because it is core to the core, from the core.
Come on now.
I mean, it is authentically a core part of who you are. So it may change how it looks. It may adapt and grow along with you as you grow, but you will be able to stay true to that real vision. And there are journal activities after every chapter so that you have a space to reflect, because there's a lot of content in there. And I want people to understand you can write in the margins of this book. You can, I left you space on every chapter for you to jot down your thoughts and reflect on all of those things, because I want this to be something where you take action from this. I want this to be something where you said, okay, I learned, I had my aha moment, and now I want to do something different with that information.
Yeah, I definitely, I have my pencil and my highlighter um, you know, doing the work,
Yes.
in this book and digging in. So Alexandria, please tell the people how they can learn and follow you and learn more about Yes, She Leads, and just stay in touch for when you do come out with that book talking about Christianity and racial revolution and connectedness and all of that. Where can the people because I'm ready for it. whenever
Uh,
whenever you are.
whenever the Lord say the same. So I thank you all. Thank you again, Jamie, for allowing me to come onto your platform and having such great dialogue and questions. And I know your folks are on Instagram too, so you can follow me on Instagram at Yes She Leads, or Twitter Yes She Leads. And I also have a group on Facebook, Yes She Leads, where we celebrate women in all of our leadership styles and diversity and culture.
Excellent, excellent. Ma'am, I am so grateful to have spent this time with you on this afternoon. I It's been too long. It's been too long for us to talk, to just sit and talk.
Yeah.
So we will. I mean, and there's life. You over there
And there's
with
life.
there's
From
life. You over there with
mompreneur
my
to
homegirl.
mompreneur,
Yes. I'm
there is
like, you over
life.
there with my homegirl Imani doing your thing, okay? I was like, listen, you go on ahead, but just know
Listen,
that I love and I
but
appreciate you.
you about to have a whole high school graduate on your
A
hands. So now,
whole she finna be a whole entire adult, okay, college student, and we are certainly in that place, okay.
yeah,
So yes, we
yeah,
get it, and like you said, we're mompreneurs doing
yes,
what we do.
yes,
So I mean, but and so that separation is not a separation in spirit and heart and love. So
yeah.
I just want to bring that back. But
I appreciate
tell my man Jay that I say hello.
I
And
certainly will. I most
yeah,
certainly will. I think he's with
um,
Imani right now, so I definitely will let him know.
all right. You have a wonderful afternoon, and just thank you for your time, ma'am.
And thank you again for having me.
All right. Bye, y'all.